LeBron James just completely flipped the NBA upside down by signing with the Sixers. He ghosted his hometown in Cleveland, turned down the chance to play alongside Steph Curry in Golden State, and instead ran straight to a franchise that has not won a championship since 1983. And he did it all because Philadelphia has a loaded roster, and LeBron wants to win another ring.
So, in the end, LeBron James chose to ring chase. What did you expect? This is the equivalent of LeBron James saying, I just can't do this by myself.
But now the NBA legends are finally speaking up about it. And wait until you hear how Scottie Pippen just tied this move back to the Jordan era. Or how Gilbert Arenas went live on the internet and completely turned his back on him after defending him for a decade. The media wants everybody to act like it's some big deal because a literal billionaire accepted an $8 million salary. But anyone with a working brain knows this is the most calculated move in basketball history. LeBron James did not take a $44 million pay cut out of the music goodness of his heart. He did it because he simply realized his only chance at survival was going to join a ready-made super team in Philadelphia. And I can't say I'm surprised because his entire career has just been a repeating cycle of joining a team, draining the assets, and dipping immediately when things get tough to handle. I mean, this guy moved from Cleveland to Miami, back to Cleveland, over to the Lakers, and now to the Sixers. Remember just 3 months ago when Oklahoma City beat the Lakers, and he sat at the podium pretending he might retire because he did not know what the future held.
I don't know. I don't know what the future holds for me, obviously.
Here's a cleaner, more polished rewrite with the same aggressive commentary style and roughly the same length. Yeah. But somehow, he miraculously rediscovered his passion for the game the moment he realized he could ghost his own hometown return, pass on playing alongside Steph Curry in Golden State, and completely walk away from his own son's development in Los Angeles. Now his entire final act is resting on Joel Embiid, a guy who has played in just 54% of available games, has 0 conference finals appearances in 10 attempts, and even suffered an emergency appendectomy during his latest playoff collapse. Music. This is the same LeBron who has gone through 10 head coaches in 23 seasons, reportedly tried to get Eric Spoelstra fired, and helped orchestrate the mid-season firing of David Blatt while the team was sitting in first place. He really thinks he just purchased another guaranteed shortcut to a championship. But the old heads of the NBA are completely disgusted by the behavior, and one iconic Boston Celtics legend has stepped forward to tear down this entire facade. Let's be real. For those of us who watched him play, you have to imagine Larry Bird is sitting at home right now completely disgusted by this move from LeBron. Larry Legend spent 13 straight years in Boston and never ran away when things got difficult. We're talking about a player who won 3 consecutive MVPs in the 1980s while carrying his team through some of the toughest basketball imaginable. The man literally destroyed his back during the offseason while manually shoveling crushed rock to build a driveway for his mother. No joke. That caused severe spinal stenosis and turned the final years of his career into an absolute nightmare. By the end of his playing days, he had to lie completely flat on the hardwood next to the Celtics bench, music, just to keep his back from locking up in the middle of a game. And yet, he never picked up the phone and begged Magic Johnson or Isaiah Thomas for a roster spot on some stacked super team. Larry understood that the entire point of winning a championship was surviving the absolute worst moments alongside the franchise that drafted you. That is the exact opposite of LeBron running away to yet another loaded situation. If you read his 1998 book, Bird Watching, he criticized superstars who switched teams simply to find an easier situation, arguing that it made players soft. He even went on national television and labeled modern players cocktail guys, because they always wanted to be wherever the party was happening. Larry absolutely music, hated the idea of taking shortcuts to success. Which is why, according to insiders close to Bird, this $8 million stunt completely damages LeBron's legacy. In fact, the alleged message was basically this: I called them cocktail guys before. Players who just want to be where the action is. LeBron has been a cocktail guy his whole career, and Philly is simply his latest party. The difference between him and me? I never needed a party. I built something. That's a legendary top 10 player of all time supposedly calling LeBron soft. But honestly, the funniest part of this entire situation is that the pushback isn't only coming from old-school legends. The real comedy starts when you look at LeBron's chief media defense attorney on the internet. Yeah, Gilbert Arenas, one of the most passionate LeBron defenders out there. He supposedly turned on him. Gilbert Arenas reportedly lost his mind on an Instagram live immediately after the news broke because his entire career as the internet's biggest LeBron protector suddenly blew up in his face. He didn't even wait for the cameras to settle before allegedly venting to his followers and exposing what he saw as the bigger problem. Gil supposedly looked into the camera and said, I defended this man for years against everybody who came for him, But I'm watching him pass on Cleveland, pass on Miami, pass on Steph Curry, and go straight to a team with 4 All-Stars already waiting. I defended the player, but man, I can't defend the pattern. That would be a wild confession coming from someone who built so much of his media persona around defending LeBron's legacy. According to the story, Gil was sick to his stomach because he saw right through the corporate packaging. LeBron is one of the most brand-conscious athletes on the planet, and now fans are supposed to believe he accepted an $8 million salary purely out of the goodness of his heart. The timeline gets even crazier when you remember that he stood on stage at Fanatics Fest just 3 weeks ago talking about how he could potentially play until he was 65 years old.
It sounds about, I can average 10 points in the league for, a long.
Here's the polished version, keeping the same length, aggressive tone and flow, so if he can, why not just keep playing for the Lakers? Instead, he panics the moment the Western Conference gets too tough and runs away to hide behind Joel Embiid, Tyrese Maxey, and newly traded Jaylen Brown because he knows he cannot win a real playoff series alone anymore. The way he used his own son for media leverage makes the entire situation even, worse. He spent 2 whole years pressuring the Lakers front office to waste a draft asset on Bronny, checking reporters courtside, and turning his family dynamic into a national news story. But the moment that setup failed to guarantee him easy wins, he abandoned the kid's development and told the media he was moving to Philadelphia because he was not doing it for family reasons. That kind of behavior drives a real hoop head like Gil completely insane. Gil had to watch his own prime with the Washington Wizards evaporate after that infamous 2010 gun incident derailed his career before he could ever win a ring. He actually knows what it feels like to lose a championship window because of real-life circumstances, while LeBron supposedly manipulates the league to avoid fighting fair. But here's where things get crazy. Paul Pierce joined the conversation. Paul Pierce was allegedly caught on a hot mic in the green room before his show even started. And according to crew members, he said, LeBron just bought 4 All-Stars in Philly and called it a championship roster. I've heard that before. It doesn't end the way you think. Like, he did not even care who got offended because he actually knows what it means to be a real dog for your city. Those who watched the 2000s-era Celtics remember when Pierce was stabbed 11 times in the face, neck, and back at a nightclub and still suited up for all 82 games that same season. He stayed through the worst years, when they were winning 24 games and everyone else was jumping ship to find an easier team. When they got KG and Ray Allen, Pierce did not text them trying to build a super team on his phone. Management brought the help straight to him because he was actually the guy in Boston. There is a huge difference between a team building around you and a 41-year-old running to hide behind a squad that already has 4 All-Stars locked down. Pierce knows exactly how this fake paper champion stuff ends because he lived through it with the 2013 Brooklyn Nets. Everyone on the internet was screaming that they were the finals favorites when they threw Pierce, KG, Joe Johnson and Jason Terry together, but they got smoked in the second round by Miami because the chemistry was trash and everyone broke down the moment the intensity ramped up. Stacking names does not win games in April. Pierce openly admitted that watching these super teams makes him feel like the game lost something. And he also said it all started with LeBron going to Miami. He's the pioneer of this.
Like now it's just like, man, come on, how many like Hall of Famer superstars you want to team up with?
And is he wrong? I mean, just check the numbers, because LeBron has been to 10 finals and lost 6 times. Stacking the deck clearly does not guarantee a ring if you do not have real grit. But if you think Pierce is dropping reality checks, his old championship teammate took this whole thing to a completely different level because this dude treats loyalty like a literal religion. Yeah, an insider allegedly leaked KG's private text messages to a personal off-season trainer after he made it clear that he was disgusted by this entire Philly situation. The man supposedly texted him, "I spent 12 years in Minnesota competing with what I had. When Ray Allen left us to join LeBron's team, I never got over it because he took the easy path. Now LeBron is on his 4th team with the most stacked roster he's ever been on. You tell me what that ring is worth when it comes that easy." That is a first ballot Hall of Famer supposedly hitting you with the truth right out of the gate because he actually knows what it means to earn something through difficult times. This dude spent over a decade in the freezing cold of Minnesota, carrying a completely dead franchise on his back without ever crying to the media or engineering a soft trade behind closed doors. He fought with absolute bench riders every single night. And when he finally won a ring in Boston at 31 years old, he was already well past his physical prime. But he still gave us one of the greatest post-game moments in sports history. Now he has to watch a billionaire take a supposed $8 million pay cut to hide behind 3 All-Stars. The depth of his hatred for this move is insane because he literally erased Ray Allen from his life for doing essentially the same thing back in 2012.
Life moving on. I took that so personal. Because out of all the places you could have went to LA. You could have went to a whole nother team. You went to the one team you knew that we was beefing with.
Here's the polished version, keeping the same length, energy, and dramatic commentary style. He did not speak to his own championship teammate for 10 straight years because he left to join a loaded team. LeBron moving to the Sixers is that exact Ray Allen-type snake move, except this time multiplied across 4 different teams and 15 straight years of avoiding a fair fight. But music. If you think KG crashed out, well, Scottie Pippen recently went on a local Chicago sports radio broadcast just to torch this Philly deal before the ink was even dry on the contract. The man did not even let the host finish his sentence before dropping the most cold-blooded warning of the entire summer. LeBron is about to find out what I found out. Assembling stars and winning a championship are 2 completely different things. That is a 6-time champion supposedly speaking from pure personal trauma because he already tried this same formula back in 1999, and it completely damaged his reputation. A lot of younger NBA fans forget that after the Bulls dynasty broke up, Scottie immediately forced a sign and trade to the Houston Rockets to build a manufactured super team with Hakeem Olajuwon and Charles Music Barkley because it looked like a cheat code on paper. Every single talking head on television was picking them to cruise their way to a ring, Music, but they got absolutely embarrassed and swept in the first round by the Lakers because you cannot just buy chemistry at the grocery store. Michael Jordan himself reportedly told Scottie not to go to Houston before he left Chicago. But Pippen thought he knew better and later admitted, "I thought I was joining a super team to some degree, but it just did not work out because I had not realized how much one of my teammates had diminished in the game." He even admitted that he had let the organization down and spent the next 6 months publicly beefing with Barkley before demanding a trade to Portland after just one toxic season. That is the same thing waiting for LeBron in Philly. Think about the reality of this setup because you have a 41-year-old man running away to play with Joel Embiid, who literally cannot make it to May without his knees turning to dust, and they just randomly threw Jaylen Brown into the fire through a desperate Music trade. You cannot replace years of built-up locker room trust with a single transaction. And LeBron has already proven he does not have the mental fortitude to survive when these teams face real problems. Yeah, no joke. Remember in 2011 when he lost against the Dallas Mavericks with his first super team Music, and openly admitted that he had lost his love for the game because he was not himself mentally? Pippen knows that the second things get crazy and the pressure gets high, these fake super teams can fold like lawn chairs. And that brings us to the most unexpected reaction to this entire thing because the one man who helped build the system that allows this kind of player empowerment is now supposedly wishing he never did it. We have to talk about Isaiah Thomas because he spent his career fighting tooth and nail as the head of the Players Association to give modern athletes the music freedom to control their own destiny. But he never actually used that privilege himself because he stayed in Detroit for 13 straight years and won back-to-back championships by beating the absolute brakes off teams that were stacked against him instead of running away when the road got rocky. The tension between these two has been bubbling for months anyway. And nobody forgot when Thomas went on national television back in April 2025 to criticize LeBron for doing shirtless pre-game warm-ups like a rookie. LeBron genuinely thinks he just outsmarted the league, but according to rumors, a league executive who was on a conference call with Thomas when this contract went live supposedly leaked his unfiltered reaction. Isaiah allegedly shouted into the phone, "I fought my whole career so players could have the freedom to choose. I opened the door. I just didn't think he'd walk through it every single time things got hard." That is the guy who helped fight for those rules supposedly telling you that LeBron is taking the cheap way out because he is too weak to face a fair fight. But somehow, through all of this, the most shocking reaction came from the big man himself because Shaquille O'Neal just went on his podcast and dropped a reaction that fully defends the move. But the defense itself, is the single most damning thing in this entire situation. Shaq looked right at his co-hosts and said this.
It's not ring chasing, it's just defining your legacy. If you can go somewhere else where you can get one, it'll be good. More power to LeBron if he can get with the team and then try to get one more ring. At this point, when we talk about LeBron's legacy, right now we're just talking about extra credit.
Here's the polished version, keeping the same punchy, dramatic style and flow. See, the media wants to run with that clip and claim Shaq was defending him. But you have to look at the real history here because Shaq is the only legend who seems to fully back this stunt. And that is because he is the one guy who openly admitted to doing the exact same shameless thing at the end of his career. When he packed his bags for the Boston Celtics back in 2010 alongside Paul Pierce and KG, he did not try to hide behind corporate branding or call it some inspirational new chapter. He admitted on record that he was straight up ring chasing. But just last week, some of his producers allegedly caught him on an unedited studio microphone saying this. I said, it's not ring chasing, it's defining your legacy. And I believe that. But I also went to Boston at the end of my career, and I called it exactly what it was, ring chasing. Okay, maybe LeBron is doing the same thing Shaq did. He just gave it a better name. Shaq basically gave away the entire hustle, proving that LeBron may have simply put a nicer corporate wrapper on a desperate act. But while Shaq is busy trying to rebrand ring chasing, his TV partner was apparently so annoyed by the breaking news that he literally turned his car around on the way to the golf course just to music. Crash the Stephen A. Smith show a few days ago. Charles Barkley walked straight onto the set looking like he wanted to fight the producers and immediately let it fly.
Number one knock on LeBron for older guys like myself has always been, yo man, you always stacking your team. He stacked it in Miami. He stacked it in Cleveland. He stacked it in LA. Now he's stacking it in Philly.
Here's the polished version, keeping the same aggressive commentary style, pacing, and overall length. The funniest part here is that Chuck had spent the entire week arguing that LeBron needed to go back to Cleveland for a rightful hometown farewell tour. Music. But LeBron completely ignored him because he was too panicked about the depth of the Western Conference. And nobody in the media wants to say this out loud, but Chuck is speaking from deep personal trauma because he left Phoenix in 1996 to build a super team in Houston with Hakeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler, then brought in Scottie Pippen, only to get smoked in the first round by a young Kobe Bryant. Barkley built a paper super team, failed miserably, and that is exactly why he knows this Philly shortcut could be a total illusion. And if you think Barkley is throwing heat, Draymond Green just did a private media scrum after an off-season workout and completely let his real feelings slip about the move. Draymond reportedly looked right at the reporters and said, "He could have come to us, but he decided Philly was a better situation. And I'd be lying if I said I was cool with that, because I'm not." The deeper meaning behind that statement is wild because it means LeBron looked at the Golden State Warriors. He looked at Steph Curry music, and apparently decided the situation was not loaded enough for a guaranteed ring. Draymond spent his entire career in Golden State building 4 championships through years of sacrifice and organic development rather than executive phone calls. And even when his villain era got messy, whether it was punching Jordan Poole in practice or getting suspended indefinitely after putting Rudy Gobert in a headlock, he faced the music inside one organization instead of running away to find an easier locker room. So let that sit with you for a second, because the data does not lie. For different teams, 41 years old, an $8 million joke of a salary, and Joel Embiid's fragile knees. He passed on his hometown, passed on his original rings, and passed on his closest peer. Bird called players like him cocktail guys. Barkley tried it and failed. KG waited 12 years in the cold. And Draymond Green was supposedly furious because LeBron looked at his team and decided it was not an easy enough shortcut. Which brings us to the ultimate question that I really need you to answer right now. If the 76ers win the championship, and that is a huge if, does LeBron silence every critic forever, or does it prove everything they ever said about him?